8:17, and we'll now call the executive committee to order. First of all, I extend my sincere apologies. We had some traffic issues. I guess somebody could make some allegations that me and the vice chair were just hanging out drinking coffee. We were both late, so that should give you pause in your leadership that y'all selected. So, anyway, thank you, Dr. Newbill. It's great to see you, ma'am. At this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Firestone if she'll do a roll call of attendees and certify a quorum if present. Thank you, Ms. Firestone.
Yes, sir. Charles City County, Mr. Atkins. Chesterfield County, Mr. Winslow. City of Richmond, Dr. Newbill.
Here.
Thank you. Richland County, Mr. Spoonhour.
Here.
Hanover County, Chair Davis.
Present.
Henrico County, Reverend Nelson. New Kent County, Ms. Page. Ms. Page did try to join the webinar, but it looks like she is maybe having some difficulty. Hopefully she'll join us back.
Thank you.
And let's see, move to the right sheet again. Cowtown County, Vice Chair Byerly.
Here.
And Town of Ashland, Dr. McGraw.
Here.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for attendance, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Let the record reflect we do have a quorum. The next item on the agenda, item number 2, is a request for approval of the September 8th meetings. Have all committee members had an opportunity to review those? Any requested changes, additions, or deletions? Dr. McGraw.
For approval of them?
Your motion to approve, I heard nothing, so I'll leave it to you. What motion you want to make, sir?
Well, I wasn't here, so I feel like I should abstain.
That's fair. Okay. Very well. Let the record reflect Dr. McGraw is going to abstain. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September 8, 2022?
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Spoonhour and a second by Dr. Newbill. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, we have the CVTA support MOU. We had spoken about this a little bit. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Heater and maybe our learned counsel as well, depends on who's going to jump in, but we had a number of things. So floor is kind of open. I'm going to turn this into what we call in Hanover County workshop format, which means that if you just want to jump in, just jump in, because I know there was some discussion about this, and I think the group's small enough that we can go to a little workshop format. Ms. Eden?
Thank you. Yes, I am hopeful that today might be the last time this is on the agenda for a while. It's been months in the works. The CVTA did, as a full authority, take action to approve the draft form that's in your packet this morning. And so this is back to the executive committee and then the full commission, if you so recommend, for final approval this morning. I'll just do a recap. I know some of you have heard this a lot, so I'll try to be quick, but it's a it's organized sort of in like 3 buckets of service is how I think about it. First and foremost, we will be the host site and employer of record for the executive director for the CVTA when that individual is selected through the CVTA's process. We, through the MOU, designate or delegate, if you want to put it that way, the responsibility for supervision, evaluation of performance, day-to-day direction of the priorities for that individual. And so PlanRVA's responsibility really for that position is to assure that we notify through our chair if any issues exist with adherence to the personnel policy. But for the most part, I would say from a day-to-day expectation, the idea is that PlanRVA is providing that back office support, payroll, benefits administration, really being able to provide that individual sort of freedom to do the executive directorship of the CVTA and not have to deal with a lot of the kind of administrative things for one staff person at this point in time. The MOU does provide for expansion of CVTA staff under that same kind of relationship, and so if the CVTA and the executive director determine that additional staff members are needed to be dispatched, if you will, to the authority, we can accomplish that. The other 2 buckets are kind of more related to the ongoing back office and technical support that PlanRVA provides. So it includes a fee structure, if you will, for use of copiers, technology and equipment, furnishings, the physical office space, all of those things, again, to be able to lend the infrastructure that we already have as an organization to the CVTA, especially while it's in its kind of growing phase and small number of employees. That's the second bucket. And then the third and final bucket is the ability to provide staff support on a technical basis. So Ms. Firestone, as you all probably know, serves as clerk of the CVTA. The other staff on our team do occasionally provide staff support in the way of assisting with running the model for project prioritization and other types of technical interfacing with your locality staff. So I think, for the first time out of the gate, it's a pretty good agreement, kind of anticipating the future needs. We did make the provisions from the conversation last time to be able to enable that review process. So Mr. Gregory did incorporate that into the agreement. So it is a continuing agreement, but there is a provision that enables both the PlanRVA executive leadership and the CVTA leadership to be able to convene and to determine that whether or not the relationship is working as it should. So.
Any questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Heater.
Am I supposed to be here?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I don't see my little name.
You are
right on the front.
supposed to be here.
Okay, all right. I'm like, what, have I missed that many meetings?
Dr. Newville,
Okay.
Reverend Nelson's joined us, Ms. Firestone, if you'd make note. So I really give a lot of credit to CVTA and probably a little bit more credit to PlanRVA because that's where my loyalties lie right now. But this was not an easy task. I know there was some trepidation as we move forward with this. Unfortunately, some of the leadership we have on CVTA helped work through this. But I know there were some concerns, some committee members, my fellow committee members on this board had concerns. And I really feel like we've navigated well. I was going to ask Mr. Byerly. I think some folks talked to him offline about that. Do you have any comments, sir?
No, I'm just happy that we finally got it all put together and it come together in some unified way to move forward with it.
Yeah, I think, I echo that. Anything further? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to draw attention, Ms. Heater mentioned this or referred to it on page 5 of your agenda packet. Page 2 of 6 of the actual MOU, you'll see an amended provision there that's in track changes. That was what the CVTA requested, providing for that review and at the end of every fiscal year. And so we clarified that. So if you make a motion to recommend approval to the full body this morning, which is what staff recommends, please do so as amended.
Okay. Can we do that by consensus, or should we vote to send that to full commission?
I would request a vote.
Very well.
In fact, a roll call if you don't mind.
Very well. So with that, on advice of counsel, if there are no further questions, is there a motion to, very well, thank you. I did notice that. Right when Mr. Gregory started speaking, we noticed that Ms. Page from New Kent is here. Ms. Firestone, if you'll make a note. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, Ms. Page has joined us. Welcome, Ms. Page.
Good morning.
Morning.
Does a motion need to have the verbiage as amended, or since we've got it here, we can let it stand on its own?
You could say as presented, motion to recommend approval as presented.
Very well. Is there a
Reflects the
motion
amendment.
to recommend approval to the full commission as presented to the executive committee?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Newbell and a second by Dr. McGraw.
Second.
Very well. Any discussion at all on this? Very well. All those in favor, we're going to ask, do a roll call. Please indicate by saying aye. Ms. Firestone, if you call the roll, ma'am.
Dr. Newville,
Aye.
Mr. Spoonhour,
Aye.
Chair Davis,
Aye.
Reverend Nelson,
Aye.
Ms. Page, Vice Chair Byerly, thank you,
Aye.
and Dr. McGraw.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
I'm sorry. Would you go bit past aye? I'm eating a muffin.
Excuse me?
My apologies. Passes unanimously. Please don't add that into this. Okay. Next item, Ms. Heater's going to go over the new office space project, the budget, as well as timeline in this update. Ms. Heater?
Yeah, thank you. I was over on site yesterday we do a weekly progress meeting with the contractor and the sub team and everything like that. I'm really pleased to say that progress is moving along very well. It is scary every time I say this. We had our project manager repeat it, I think twice yesterday on the call, because I wanted to make sure I heard him correctly. We are on time and we are actually under budget. So I will keep you up to date if anything changes with that, but mostly the budget implications are due to some change orders that we've done. We've had one come through already and two more that are pending, and they're just kind of like the swapping of materials. So I don't want to alert you to like huge deviations, but it is nice to know that as we're headed into kind of the meat of the construction, we haven't had to deal with any of the kind of contingency issues that sometimes comes up. So I think that in part that's due to the fact that our contractor had intimate knowledge of the building. They were the contractor that built out floors 4, 5, and 6, so they knew what they were going into. And we have really strong subs that are just working really well together. We probably have two kind of question marks in the timeline around supply chain. Doors and frames are on order, and they're according to the tracking information, they are due on time. So provided that just works out as it should, we'll be in good shape there. He's a little bit worried about 2 light fixtures specifically, and so the plan is that they will put in temporary light fixtures until those come in so that it doesn't hold up the overall project schedule and certificate of occupancy. So we are still tracking to have our CO issued November 29th, which puts us staff back in at their desks on site the week of December 5th. So I will certainly keep you posted. We get these, now we're getting pictures. So like last week I sent you pictures, and I think that I'll expect that. So I'll continue to forward those. But we are, throughout the majority of the space, they're still pulling some wires in certain corners, but through the majority of the space, we've got both sides drywall up. And so it's really kind of hard to believe that we're kind of getting down to the finishes at this point. All the cabling and everything like that has been completed, and it's just been really, really great. So look forward to having you all over. We will have a site visit. We have that planned for October 25th. So not only are members of the executive committee, Audit Facilities and Finance Committee invited, they'll be meeting there at 1 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. We've scheduled a noon kind of walkthrough, so if anybody would like to come, please let me know. I'll communicate that again in a week or so, just to give you a heads up, and we'll be providing lunch for anybody that wants to participate in that as well. So.
And that's October 25th?
Tuesday, October 25th, yeah. Okay. CVTA's Finance Committee will be meeting through the transition at the new location on the first floor in their conference room. And we're hosting a couple of other meetings there just to kind of help get some practice and that kind of thing. So our team, I know Sid and Lee Medford are working on some directional information just as a point of information, and we'll make sure that this is well communicated for our meetings on site. The parking garage entrance is on 5th Street, so we will likely communicate 2 addresses. So the address of our building is 424 Hull Street, but the parking is accessible. So if you put your GPS in, you're going to find yourself in a parallel parking situation one way, on Hull Street. So I think what we're talking about doing is trying to provide some information to you so that if you do GPS, it'll take you to the 5th Street parking garage entrance. So, and we'll have more information about how all that will work going forward. Janice did put together this for your reference. I think we've got a stack over here for all of the board members, but I wanted to just call your attention to it. It's a schedule. So this is the last meeting that we are hosting in this space. Starting basically tomorrow, we're decommissioning this office. So we've got vendors in here doing various aspects of taking down technology and that kind of thing in preparation for our move out on October 28th. Our last day for our lease period is 10/31. So we're planning to walk out of here on that Friday, and that'll be our last day. So the team has done a phenomenal job, and this is the work of Janice and others to put together the alternative locations for the meetings that will occur through the end of the year. So we will again make sure that we over communicate, hopefully to the point that you're annoyed with us, to remind you where the location of each of the meetings are and that kind of thing. So just wanted to let you all see from the PlanRVA perspective. I know you're probably most concerned with the PlanRVA meetings, but I wanted to just be able to give you the full scope of all the different meetings that are happening through the end of the year. So.
Great, thank you. Any questions on that? This is actually, I'm hesitant in saying this is moving along very, very smoothly, which causes me some
I know,
anxiety.
same.
Because particularly working in these fields before, so thank you for that. The next item is key imperatives. You know, we've worked on this for quite some time. I know there've been additions, deletions, and different things like that. I'm gonna ask Martha if she'll open this up, but you'll see this, it's on page 16, and I guess this is the final, if that's an appropriate way to put it, for review, and this is gonna be an action item for the executive committee. Martha?
Thank you. This concept was born out of Mr. Spoonhour's leadership when he served as chair, just really to be able to kind of boil down, you know, what are we really working toward in the fiscal year. And so the headings are probably looking familiar to you at this point because you've seen this for a while now. The idea is that the board approves these near the beginning of the year, and then we do quarterly updates on these. The executive committee saw this draft last month. I will note that there was a change based on the conversation in the imperative area 5. Mr. Spoonhour, you did make a recommendation to sort of strengthen that language around the relationship with CBTA. So I put formalize as opposed to, I think we said before, it was something like explore, or I don't know, it was a little bit more kind of just softer language. So the hope would be that if this looks appropriate to you, you would recommend to the full commission this morning approval, and then we would set this on the schedule so that at each quarterly meeting, you'd see an update about where we are with various initiatives in each of the key priority areas.
Any questions? Yeah, Neil, thank you for doing this. That was a big undertaking, and I think many folks have been pleased with it.
I just set in motion and Martha went, so.
Yeah, no,
It really wasn't for me.
no. Well, thanks for getting the ball started. Yeah, Martha continues to roll the ball uphill, sometimes with great ease. Makes it look easy. Any questions on this at all? Anybody online? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to move this to the full commission with recommendation for approval by the full commission?
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second by Reverend Nelson. Any discussion? I will do a roll call on this too. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Ms. Firestone?
Dr. Newbill?
Aye.
Mr. Spoonhour?
Aye.
Chair Davis?
Aye.
Reverend Nelson?
Aye.
Ms. Page? I think she did.
Connection might be bad.
Vice Chair Byerly?
Aye.
Thank you. And Dr. McGraw?
Aye.
That motion carries.
Very well, thank you, Ms. Firestone. Okay, so I'm gonna introduce this a little bit. It's funny, I speaking with Martha, we did a Habitat for Humanity ribbon cutting last week. We spoke briefly kind of on the bus, and then I left a message for her yesterday about I didn't get up on board until too late to call you. So there was substantial discussion over virtual meetings, and I want to be clear. We're going to actually have 2 action items proposed on the committee agenda, just like we do with the executive committee. So we have the remote participation or virtual meetings, and then secondarily, we have the participation aspect of it. And what was interesting in that is that boards and commissions can kind of self-govern as long as they're within the parameters of law. And I'm giving my expert legal opinion here, Mr. Gregory. So some boards or commissions may have different participation standards, and as long as they're within the parameters of what the law says, then they're allowed to do that. And there was substantial discussion over that portion. I know we're gonna have 2 separate action items on this, but I suspect that there could be some crossover. Would you agree, Mr. Gregory, on whether the virtual meeting and then the participation? So as we discuss this, I anticipate in the full commission meeting that while we're discussing one, the other may come in. I just wanted folks to be clear that we're gonna have 2 proposed action items for this committee as well. One of them is virtual meetings, and then the other is the actual participation within those virtual meetings. And with the diverse group that we have here, particularly from different localities, folks are gonna say, well, back home, we do this, and I'd like to see that here. And I believe we've worked very well through that. I wanna thank Martha and Janice and certainly our learned attorney again, because that's not easy to work. Our county administrators, county managers have 5 to 7 bosses. Our town managers have a few bosses, but then you come to some place like this and you have 55 bosses, it seems like. You've got your commission members and all their staff back. So thank you for that. You wanna open that up? I'll just turn it over to Eric and Janice, and if they wanna kind of tag team this, but you just wanna run with it now?
Sure.
Thanks, man.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the Executive Committee, what you have on page 17 of your agenda packet is a policy for all virtual public meetings. Okay, there's two different policies in your agenda packet, 2 different policies you'll consider, and staff recommends approval of both. Not as an endorsement of the policy itself, but as a way to give you the most flexibility to meet as necessary within compliance with Virginia state law, particularly the Freedom of Information Act. As you all probably have heard at your local level or through other boards at PlanRVA, whether it be the TPO or the CVTA, the General Assembly passed some modifications to FOIA this past session. Given or in light of the experience that we've all had over the past 2.5, 3 years with the COVID-19 pandemic and the necessity to meet virtually, and the comfort that people have gained with that style of meeting, the General Assembly passed some changes to FOIA to allow greater flexibility for local and regional bodies to do that. Now, all virtual public meetings is not something that your respective local governing bodies can do. The General Assembly did not authorize local governing bodies to meet by all virtual means, but they do allow, the statutory changes do allow for other public agencies to meet by all virtual means, particularly state agencies, state boards, regional bodies like this. Okay, where you have people that are more spread out and it's more difficult to get to the centralized meeting space. So the all virtual public meetings policy that you have before you is required by law in order to do that. If the body ever decides that it needs for various reasons that are allowed by law to meet by all virtual means, you have to first have this policy in place. That doesn't mean that you will do that anytime you want or willy-nilly. It just means that you'll have a policy in place that if circumstances warrant and the body so chooses, it could meet by all virtual means at a given meeting. Now, you have to comply with the policy. You have to find that it's impractical or unsafe to assemble a quorum, and other circumstances warrant all virtual meeting. For instance, if various members are on vacation or whatever, and that's the only way you can get a quorum, and you need to conduct the public business and keep the agency moving forward by decisions that are necessary to be made at those meetings, then you can decide to meet by all virtual means. You can only do that. Up to 2 times per year, or 25% of your meetings per year, whichever is greater. And you can't do it back to back. You can't meet 2 months in a row, say, by virtual means. You have to still come together fairly frequently. So this is not something that you would do consistently or on a regular basis, but if circumstances warrant, and if you comply with the policy, it would provide you the flexibility to do that. You still have to do everything that we've been doing over the past couple of years. You still have to provide public access. You still have to provide an opportunity for the public to comment via the live stream or via the online meeting platform. You have to make sure that the voices of all the participating members are audible by anybody who signs on. And you have to make sure that no 2 members of the body are together at one location. If it's all virtual, people are all, the assumption is, or the requirement is they are all spread out and have it that So that's that policy. If you would like, you can either take action on that right now, or I can move into the other one and,
If there's no objection, I was going to ask Mr. Gregory just to go into the other one, and then we'll take separate action if that's agreeable by committee members. Because one of the things that did come up was, and Eric brought this up, that folks can be heard that are virtual and so on and so forth, which does cross over a little bit. There was some discussion that should someone's connection not continue to be stable, or they're unable to participate in a manner that is deemed by their colleagues to no longer meet the standard of being able to participate, then through an act of self-governance in your policy, you could have that member be deemed no longer able to participate. And I know that that's kind of going to be a little bit of a rub with some folks, but I think that kind of has to be in there because of some of the things that were brought up. So yeah, and does anybody have any comments on that? I just want to be clear. We do know that is coming up, and that was a little bit of a rub that essentially, I don't think this is a correct definition, but some folks said, so a member could be kicked out. I think it's very different from being asked to leave a meeting by the sergeant at arms in a building like this and someone having a technical issue. The other thing is I do think there would be a vetting process. You'd have to recognize that have a majority of the members that are present to say this person is no longer able to participate. One committee member brought up the possibility of nefarious actions for political reasons, right? And I heard it. I certainly want to be respectful, and I give deference to committee members. I think it would be very hard to find that to be the case that you could get an entire body to agree for nefarious or political reasons to exclude someone from a meeting that was able to participate. But I do want to cover that. I'm not sure it's going to be a big topic at the full commission meeting, but if you think it's okay, maybe we'll cover both of them and then we'll take separate action. Okay, thank you.
yes, sir. So just before, yes, sir.
So I just want to comment, because we're blending two things right now. I just want to
Yeah.
clarify that what you're suggesting is that there might be people who consistently are remote if approved, as long as when we're meeting in person, the majority of the people are meeting in person, like.
So now you're moving into the second topic, which is remote participation of individual members, kind of like we have today, where you have a physical quorum present in one location, but there are members of the body for various reasons, and we'll get into that are participating remotely, okay?
But this thing doesn't mention the number of people, and that's where I'm a little confused.
It
'Cause if
doesn't.
one of us shows up and everyone else is remote.
5G,
It is?
yes, sir.
Where did that?
No more than 2 members of PlanRVA together in one physical location.
Right, that's the all virtual, okay?
That's if it
All
was
virtual.
all virtual. I don't think, and I'm certainly not putting words in Dr. Straw's mouth. I don't think that's necessarily what you were talking
Yeah.
about,
No,
right?
I'm talking
You're talking about if we had a meeting here and somebody else is remote.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So let's be precise, okay?
That's,
Because confusion can sink these things, right? So what I was talking about a moment ago is if the body is meeting by all virtual telecommunications or electronic means, right? That's
Like
we had been doing during COVID-19, where everybody's at their house or at their office or whatever, and they all sign on, okay? All virtual. Nobody is physically present together, okay? To address something that Chairman Davis said, if for whatever reason, I think you touched on this, if for whatever reason during an all virtual public meeting, the feed via the Zoom or GoToMeeting or WebEx or whatever it is, whatever online platform you're using, if the body has to maintain a telephone number, and if the feed is cut for any reason, a member of the public who can't see what's going on can call that number and notify the body that the feed is cut if they don't already know, and then the meeting is to stop. And you have to stop the meeting, and you hold the meeting in recess until the connection is restored, okay? And then you can reconvene the public meeting. So that's to address that one issue that I think you touched on. Now, Are there any further questions on all virtual public meetings?
All virtual is defined as everybody being virtual.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. All right. So all virtual, there's a definition of all virtual public meetings on page 17 in your meeting packet, item 2C. So if there's any confusion, that is the definition. Means a public meeting conducted by the PlanRVA using electronic communications means during which all members of the public body who participate do so remotely rather than being assembled in one physical location, okay? And to which public access is provided through electronic communications means, all right? So that's what we're talking about on that one.
Mr. Gregory, what
Sir.
happens if more than two people did show up in a physical location?
At one, well, I mean, it would be any physical location. If they showed up, then that's a good question that they would have to be instructed to split off and to not be together at that one single location. That's not me talking.
I understand, no,
that's
I get
FOIA.
it.
And that's 5G that you referenced a
Yes.
moment ago, yeah. And I think, that's a fair provision, I think, only because they don't want two members, whispering to each other or, potentially colluding at a certain location or whatever. So that's what the General Assembly provided for. Are there any other questions about the all virtual public meeting policy?
Anything at all? All right, so, is there a motion to recommend that we adopt, to send this to the full commission for adoption of the all virtual public meeting policy?
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. We're gonna do a roll call. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye when your name is called.
Dr. Newbill?
Aye.
Mr. Spoonhour?
Aye.
Chair Davis?
Aye.
Reverend Nelson?
Aye.
Ms. Page? Vice Chair Byerly?
Aye.
And Dr. McGraw?
Aye.
Thank you, that
Good.
motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am. Next item, is there a motion to adopt the policy for remote participation of members?
Do you want
Well,
Mr. Gregory to go through that
We can go
first?
through that on
Just so-
discussion if the motion,
Oh,
there's a
okay.
second.
Yeah, we need anything further on that?
I don't think he's talked through it at all.
I haven't run through it, I haven't described it yet
Okay.
entirely, but you could do the motion in a second, and I could cover it in discussion.
Have all commission members had, or executive committee members had an opportunity to review it? Would you like an executive summary of that? Let's go ahead and do it.
Okay, so the next one is on page 20 of your agenda packet. That is the policy for remote participation of members. And that is to allow the public body to meet and allow members of the body to participate by electronic telecommunications means, like what we're doing today and like what we've been doing for a good amount of time now. That policy requires a physical quorum of the public body to be present in one location, like it is today, right? But under certain circumstances, for personal reasons, or if that member is ill or sick, or has a disability or a medical condition that prevents their physical presence at the meeting, or if there's a family member who is also suffering from a medical condition or a disability for whom they have to provide care or attention, which also prevents their presence at the meeting, they can request to participate by telecommunications means, right? So this policy would allow for that as long as you comply, and you have to have the policy in place before you can do so. The reason we're able, as a side note, the reason we're able to do it right now and continue to do it, or have been doing it, is that the city of Richmond still has a declaration of public emergency in place that allows for that in compliance with FOIA. Going forward, we need to prepare for if and when that emergency declaration expires or is withdrawn. And this would be in place, if you approve it, to allow for what we're doing today to continue on if there's compliance with the policy and if you approve it. So So if somebody has if a member of the public body has a situation where they cannot participate, they have a temporary or permanent disability or a medical condition, or if they reside, their principal residence is more than 60 miles away from the meeting location, that also would allow them to participate by virtual means in compliance with the policy. I don't think that would apply to any of the members of this public body, but you never know. Some state agencies and other regional bodies may come into play. Or they have a personal matter that they identify with specificity that requires them to participate by virtual communications means. For instance, their car breaks down, or they're on personal or business travel, and so they're off site or out of state or wherever where they can't get to the meeting. So they would, in order to comply with that policy, they would contact the chairman either by email or telephone and request that they be allowed to participate by virtual telecommunications means for that meeting. And if there's a quorum present, and if they are in compliance with the policy, meaning they meet one of those categories, the chairman can authorize their participation by telecommunications means. On the day of the meeting, you all would assemble, and the attendance would, the meeting would be opened, and the chairman would indicate that, Mrs. X has requested to participate virtually. I have approved her participation by virtual means, by telecommunications means, in compliance with our policy. I would invite a motion to approve her, her participation by telecommunications means in compliance with the policy, meaning I have approved her participation in compliance with the policy, okay? So the body itself isn't approving or disapproving her participation. The chair approves or disapproves it. What the body is doing is approving the chair's compliance with the policy to allow for that. And that's to prevent any sort of political or nefarious sort of decision-making to allow or disallow one's participation participation in the meeting by telecommunications means. The policy has to be followed objectively and fairly, and not for those reasons, not to exclude someone for political reasons or something like that, which can happen. But if you follow this policy, it's much less likely to happen, and I would say extraordinarily unlikely. So this policy would allow for that. And I recommend you approve it because there are oftentimes some difficulties in getting a quorum for these kinds of meetings. So it allows for greater flexibility there.
If I
Sure,
may,
yeah.
referring back to the meeting schedule for the PlanRVA group, we are scheduled to meet outside of the city limits of Richmond City in December. So this policy would enable the current practice of virtual participation of some members, provided that a physical quorum is achieved at the physical location. But absent this policy, we would need to require any participant in that meeting to be on site physically, we would not be able to provide any sort of virtual participation for that meeting. So I just wanted to sort of put that in a context of, while it's a short-term need, I would say that's a reason why this could potentially be helpful. We do on occasion rotate meetings around the region, and so that could be helpful for that.
Absolutely, that's going to be a real world situation where we'll need this policy in place. You want to allow for that. So
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When you're done, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead, Dr. Newbill.
Are we limited in terms of the number of times a person can participate virtually, whereby the chair approves, et cetera?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for bringing that up. A member of the public body under this policy and under the applicable provisions of FOIA may only participate by virtual telecommunications means in up to 2 meetings of the public body per year, or 25% of the public body's meetings per calendar year, whichever is greater. So I haven't done the math to figure out what 25% of the public body's annual meetings are, but it will be the greater of the two. So, it can't be every meeting. You can only do it on certain number of times per year and under the circumstances afforded by the policy and by FOIA.
But that's only for personal matter, correct?
That's right.
The distinguishing being, if we call 2 meetings all virtual, then everybody would be disqualified if it wasn't specifically for a personal matter.
Well, the body can, if you adopt, well, if the PlanRVA adopts the all virtual public meeting policy.
Right, just for time.
That doesn't count against
Right.
one's, an individual member's allowance to participate under the other policy, which would be individual members. So that you don't get dinged for that.
Right. And then the last, and just to maybe flush this out to make the full committee go smoother. In 5, when he says, when a quorum of PlanRVA has assembled, is the person, because sometimes for executive committee, we need the virtual person to provide the quorum, are they part of that count for the quorum?
No, you still need a physical quorum present.
So maybe
the
then,
physical
when a
location.
quorum of PlanRVA has physically assembled,
That's correct. So
It
you
doesn't say-
can't,
this has assembled.
okay, well, yeah.
Do you wanna add that? Is that what you?
Well, we can if you would like. These policies came from template policies that were provided by the FOIA council, so,
I like I'll leave it to the discretion. I think that's a good point. I would be in favor of amending it, but, adding something stricter to FOIA council is probably not gonna cause them to walk in and start kicking us in the head. But,
Right.
Dr. McGraw.
Yeah, I have 3 things on that. Like, one is, does it need to be the chair that approves? If this is a matter of just meeting criteria, and I'm happy with an elected person doing it, but we're part-time in this body versus a full-time staff member who might be more inclined to be checking email on a regular basis. I mean, it's easy to have things lost. Like I could send something to our current chair and maybe he's off in a meeting somewhere, his email floods and I never get approval. I don't know. I just feel like that's a bit of extra work or onus put on the chair.
My thought process on that is that, so if folks, and I say this, exclude me from speaking from a chair position, just this, is that if you're gonna select your leadership, then your leadership should have the ability to perform their duties, and if they don't, and it's extremely difficult, I think, for elected officials to then receive approval or denial of matters such as this from someone who's not an elected individual, kind of put in the same place, but.
The statute provides that the chair will approve or disapprove of participation. Now, how that's communicated to the chair, that could certainly come through staff. I would suggest, belt and suspenders. You contact the chairman, you copy the staff, you contact both of them, and try to get that request to the chair one way or another ahead of the meeting, so that the arrangements can be made. But it doesn't mean that it has to be the day before the meeting. It could be 5 minutes before the meeting. It could be as soon as the meeting convenes. This person could.
That was kind of going to be my second follow-up,
point,
is
yeah.
that, I wake up and I'm sick and I don't have the chair's number in my phone right away, but I do have the executive directors, because that's the person I've been communicating with. It just seems to me that that's a big, I don't know, but it's fine. I understand the way you've explained it. Makes sense to me.
FOIA requires that they notify the chair of their request.
Okay.
Do you have a third question, Dr. Brown?
Yes, so for the full commission, it makes sense to me that a physical quorum is here. I just don't know if we'll always be able to have a physical quorum every time for the executive committee. And so does FOIA require that even for that smaller committee? Because it's a smaller number, and if 2 people are sick and one person's out of town.
There's been times when we haven't had the
Yeah.
executive committee meeting.
Okay, all right. Well,
Still have to have a physical quorum, so.
okay, that's all.
I would suggest that the word assembled means physically assembled. It doesn't mean.
I get that, but we're talking virtual as well. You know what I mean? Like I would have agreed until March 13th, 2020, right? And then it's like assembled is kind of different, because then if that was the case, then folks would say that you never assembled prior to that, and we certainly assembled virtually for quite some time.
Mr. Chair, I know we're short on time.
We are very short.
But if I may, I think we've all been navigating all of these new circumstances, and I mean, I think that the provisions that the FOIA Council have provided have been a good first step. I would imagine that there will be opportunity, particularly through your channels at VACO and VML, as well as through VAPDC, to provide input over the long haul after we see how these policies can be exercised and that kind of thing. So I mean, I think that this is a evolving process, and I think Mr. Gregory's done a great job of putting together policies that are compliant, and I think being able to document the practicality of that implementation will be helpful, and then feed that back to the council. So I just would offer that.
Very well. Is there a motion to recommend adoption of the policy and send to the full commission for consideration?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion by roll call vote? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Ms. Firestone?
Dr. Newbill,
Aye.
Mr. Spoonhour,
Aye.
Chair Davis,
Aye.
Reverend Nelson,
Aye.
Ms. Page.
She's not there anymore, Jana.
Okay. Vice Chair Byerly
Aye.
and Dr. McGraw.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Very well, the motion carries. The time is 9:04. We're going to adjourn the executive committee meeting. And we'll take no more than 6 minutes. Make sure we have everybody here. Looks like we do have a room starting to fill up, but we will convene the full commission meeting and no later than 9:10. We are adjourned.
Good morning.